Ho ho ho, baby. 1-800-449-8255. And you didn't die and go to heaven. Or maybe you did, baby, because you're on the Clark the Shark Show. That's right. The Wolfman Jack on crack from the golden EIB Sharkraphone. It's not a microphone. No way. This is a Sharkraphone, man. And I'm going to talk about one of the greatest albums ever recorded in all of rock and roll. This album's so great and so incredible that, like, I don't even want to put it in the top 1,000 albums or even the top 10 albums. Or this album is one of those albums that's outside of that. It's not number 1 or number 3 or number 9, or it's out of the top 100, and it's into a level higher, a special class of special albums, like Led Zeppelin 4, and I don't know, maybe the Beatles' White Album. Gosh, man, the Stones' Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers and Beggar's Banquet. But Who's Next is one of those albums that's just a cut above everything. This album is in that special echelon of amazing greatest albums. So I'm not going to say this album's number 1 or number 3 or number 4 of the top 1,000 or top 100 albums. This album goes to that next level called Vinyl Albums Heaven, baby, where only a few rock bands dare to go. I mean, I might put the Beatles' Rubber Soul in that, certainly Sgt. Pepper for sure. Man, and of course this one, 1971's Who's Next by The U. Now, there are some drawbacks and problematic things I gotta start out with about this album. Now, I actually liked The Who a lot more before this album. I thought they were a lot more honest with themselves, with Tommy, The Who Sell Out, and all that shitty, lame music that they did before Who's Next, really before Live at Leeds, when The Who were a younger band that was, too green and it was too early, and it seemed like their music was still cold in the middle and half-baked whenever you heard it, especially Tommy. But I could really say that about all The Who's early music. It wasn't finished, it was half-finished or underplayed or underdone, or it could have been better, and yet I like it more somehow than Who's Next and all that Who that came, starting with Who's Next and then moving forward into Quadrophenia after. I like The Who before this. It's more interesting. To me, Tommy, with all its flaws and all its imperfections, it just has something that Who's Next will never have. And of course, so does The Who Sell Out and the early Who, with that magical British insanity and that Carnaby Street, London, England, just that magical time back in the 60s when it was insane and everyone was on acid and acting weird. The Who get too mature here with this album. And really, the funny, ironic thing about this isn't a Who album at all. This is a compilation. It's almost like a greatest hits, if you will, as The Who failed with their project called Lifehouse, which, of course, was the follow-up idea to Tommy. And of course, The Who were a much better band after Tommy. They were more mature. They were these big rock stars wearing bell-bottom jeans and playing just gigantic shows, man. I mean, only Led Zeppelin was bigger than The Who, and not by much. The Who were like number 2, baby. The Stones and everybody else, let's be honest here, they struggled to keep up with The Who. And of course, when The Who really got going here, they were realized and came into full bloom with this album. I mean, love it or hate it, like it or not, for better or worse. Lifehouse would have been an awesome thing, like Tommy, but The Who gave up on it, and they just started picking out what's the best shit off it, and they ended up with this album, Who's Next? And of course, it starts out with Baba O'Riley, and you're like, what the fuck is this? This doesn't sound like Tommy or Magic Bus or any of that shit. What is this? You know, The Who were a brand new band here. This album sounds nothing like that other Who before this. You know, Live at Leeds is the transitional thing where they shocked you, you know, with Young Man Blues, and the way they played on that album, it was like nothing you'd ever heard before from any band, and certainly from The Who. When you heard the version of Summertime Blues and Substitute, and how powerful the My Generation was on Live at Leeds, you knew The Who would never be the same again. And this album, immediately in 1971, it let you know that The Who really were what people thought all along. They were one of the greatest rock and roll bands in history, like the Beatles, like Led Zepp, you know, like the Stones, but even bigger and even better than those. This album is incredible. And it's not my favorite Who album, but even me, Clark the Shark, I have to, you know, hand it to him here. This album, which is really just, they handpick through Lifehouse. They abort that project, which would have been so awesome. But I think The Who realized we don't want another Tommy right now. We just want a regular album that people are going to rock out to and, you know, get into, and make The Who the world's greatest band. And baby, they did that here with Who's Next, 1971. I mean, like it or not, you know, that's the way it was. That's the way it is. This album, oh, is that Oxford? I don't know. There's always like a picture of an instrument, or like a Hammond V3 synthesizer, or like a glockenspiel, or like, what's that instrument, like xylophone or marimba or electronic marimba, or, you know, mellotron. This is a synthesized mellotron. Is that the thing they used for Baba O'Riley? I don't know, but the ARP synthesizer. Yeah, man, The Who, 1971. They became this band. Long-haired guys rocking, man. And they were still the same sloppy, horrible Who, but now they had these big songs, baby. Of course, it gets 5 stars. 1-800-449-8255. You know, on the Clark the Shark Show, Who's Next is going to get 5 stars. And this album, where The Who just change, and it's a total makeover of everything. They throw away the old Who here, and Baba O'Riley is like, this is us now. And then Bargain, you know, right there, you just got 2 of the greatest songs in rock. You know, Love Ain't for Keeping kind of takes it back to some humanity, where like, you're like, oh, this might be the band that did Tommy. But then My Wife just kicks ass, and so does Song Is Over. And you're like, man, well, who is this band I'm listening to? I don't know these guys. This isn't Tommy. This isn't Magic Bus or The Who Sell Out. What is this? They're just like, this is the new Who. You know, Getting in Tune, kind of a song that, you know, not that great, but, you know, comes down to earth a little bit. You know, I mean, this album hardly wastes a track. because Going Mobile, Behind Blue Eyes, and the epic classic Won't Get Fooled Again. The Who are just letting you know on these three songs, baby, we are rock and roll. We're the greatest band in rock and roll. And then you look at this whole album overall, and these guys, man, these four guys, mainly just this one guy, Pete Townshend, they're just letting you know, okay, we are right there with Led Zeppelin. And we don't even care if we only sell 3 million, a full million, and Zeppelin sells 25 million. Who gives a shit? You know, fuck the people. We're the Who, and we're the best. And they really do prove it here with Lifehouse, also known as Who's Next. There is an expanded version of this album with all the B-sides, bonus tracks, baby, everything. And there's even people, you know, Who fans on YouTube, they put together their own version of what Lifehouse might have been like. And it's really awesome. But this album here is for kind of dumb consumers. The Who are like, we're not going to do another Tommy, or, you know, this isn't quite, you know, Quadrophenia yet. When the Who get to that phase in 1973, you know, they sort of go back to the Tommy big concept thing. They had to, you know, they're the Who. But they let Lifehouse just go here, you know, and drift, you know, just twist in the wind, if you will. They put out, in my book, you know, this is kind of a lame album, Who's Next, because it's just the Who trying to be commercial, you know, big AOR album rock. And they knew they had a bunch of great songs here, and they knew what they were doing. They had a plan here, people. And the Who established themselves as one of the greatest rock bands ever in rock and roll with this album. And for that, I have to just sit here and go, yeah. You know, me, Clark the Shark, I like weird shit. I like weird concepts. I like ideas that are busy and full of complicated arrangements and lots of thinking. I don't like simple shit. And for that, I kind of don't like this album. But even me, Clark the Shark, I gotta sit here and just admit that Who's Next, 1971, really truly is one of the greatest rock and roll albums in history, generically. It's in those 10 albums, you know, like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, and Zep 4, and, you know, those albums that I don't really like Pink Floyd, but I gotta admit, some of those albums are incredible, like The Wall. I think they're a fucking boring, lame, shitty band, but even me, Clark the Shark, I find myself sitting there listening to Pink Floyd and thinking about Roger Waters and all the shit he did, man. I'm like, you know, like it or not, Shark, it's fucking a lot of good original melodies and ideas, and it's incredible. Sort of like this album here, Who's Next, by Pete Townshend and the Who. I would have loved to have seen Lifehouse. I wish the Who would really release that album. I'm not sure if they have or haven't, but I would love to see officially MCA Records or whoever it is. I'm sure all the Who got burned in that fire, you know, in 2008, the Universal fire, and all the Who's music is gone now. But I would imagine that Pete Townshend has all these copies over in England in his home studio. And I would love to compile Lifehouse, how Pete Townshend would have loved to, or would have, how he would have envisioned or pictured how that project would have been. It probably has like 18 or 23 songs, or it's a double or triple album. And I can kind of see why in 1971 the Who didn't want to do that. They just wanted a clean slate, you know, a fresh, regular album that's boring. That isn't. That is really great. And that is Who's Next, you guys. This album is incredible. I get sick of Baba O'Riley. I get sick of Won't Get Fooled Again. I don't get sick of Bargain or Behind Blue Eyes or Going Mobile. Those are all awesome. But overall, in general, I would say this fucking album is incredible. It's loaded with some of the greatest songs in rock and roll. And all you kids born in 2001 today, I want you to buy this album, and I want you to buy everything by The Who. Of course, I want you to learn about the earlier Who, the Who sellout, and a quick one, Tommy. Before The Who just went huge and became monsters. You got to learn where they started, their humble beginnings. You know, back when they were the band that were smashing gear. You know, this album is an arrival album, and it really isn't. This is like The Who's debut album of The Who, the new Who. You know, The Who that was The Who sellout and Tommy. Tommy is transitional, but there never was a 1970 Who album, which is a damn shame. All we have is Live at Leeds. I would have loved to have heard a Who album in 1970. But this album here has nothing to do with Tommy. This album is mature guys playing arenas who are fucking rocking people very loud, and they are among the monsters of rock. The Who. Who's next? On the Clark the Shark Show, baby, where you just got the only review of this incredible album. You know, incredible. That you'll ever need, you'll ever get. You can listen to the other reviewers on YouTube. They're going to be pretty fairly accurate when they assess this amazing album. On the Clark the Shark Show. I'm Clark the Shark, and you just got the word, you just got the gospel, you just got the testimony, baby, from the golden EIB Sharkerphone. This is not Little Sharky's Underground Garage. This is Sharky's corporate, big-time arena garage, baby, because I'm talking about Who's Next. Where everything is at another level. Everything is at a bigger picture. This band became one of the greatest bands in rock. Right here, baby. These four guys. And they were great before this, believe me. But when bands go to the next level, baby, it's a result like this. On the Clark the Shark Show. And I'm out.